Hello, everyone. It's Denise Galiatsatos, President and COO of PCG Digital, and I am thrilled to be sitting here in our studio today with Michele Kowalski and Sarah Ciociola, who you also know and love. Hello, ladies.
Hi. Excited to be here.
Yes.
Same.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have a dynamic discussion today about a really important topic, and it's going to be things and results that we have been seeing in some of the sales audits that we have been performing as a team. So just a little backstory for the folks out there. Sometimes, dealers will come to us and want us to audit their marketing, their websites, their spend, all of that. And we've done quite a few the past year for our sales team. So today we kind of wanted to talk about some of the things we're seeing and how to combat some of those things, right? Where there's areas of opportunity and, recommendations that we're giving to dealers out there. So Michele, I want to start with you. A hot topic for everyone that talks to us is content. We went through a world where content was king. I'm sure you remember years ago when we always used to say that. And there's so much debate about quality of content versus, quantity of words and keyword ranking and all of that. What are some of the things that we've been seeing on the sales audits that have been raising our eyebrows a bit in regards to content?
So a lot of the content we've been seeing is we'll see a lot of content, more so that's higher word counts that necessarily isn't getting the point across, that isn't optimized well. There isn't a lot of keywords. There's no internal linking. The headers are an absolute mess. They're not taking advantage of where they should be for SEO. So when it comes to content, you really want to focus on your quality of your content, especially word count over the quantity. I know there's a lot of people out there speaking about quantity and that you should have so many words. As long as you're getting your point across with content, you have your keywords in there, you have your proper linking, you have your proper headers, meta titles, descriptions, all of that good stuff, then Google will recognize your content as quality content. It answers the user's question and brings them to the site. So you always want to make sure that the content is actual quality over quantity and word count in that type of aspect.
Great. In regards to that, one of the things that we really hone in on these sales audits is conversions on specific pages. So we will ask the dealer that we're auditing for, 3 pages that they want us to look at that was created for them. At the end of the day, the dealer wants to obviously sell cars. That's the goal, right? So we look at these pages and we want to see what conversions are happening. What have we been seeing?
So there's a lot of content out there that is kind of like mediocre cookie cutter content that's not going to bring a qualified shopper to your website. So when you write content, you really want to focus on more of a transactional approach. You want to focus on a shopper that's going to come to your website, that's in the car buying process, that's ready to kind of make a decision, or they're kind of in between decisions, or they're between models, they're between different trim levels, stuff like that. So when we create our content, we focus mostly on transactional keywords on the website, which these keywords have higher search volume. They'll bring people to your website that are specifically looking for that dealership, something related to the dealership, a specific model, all that good stuff. So that's really where you want to focus on for the content. But we're also seeing content that will be up there for years and they won't be touching it.
Right.
So that's something too. You want to always make sure you're refreshing your content going in, making sure that it's fully optimized, because a page that could be ranking great 5 years ago without being touched could not be ranking, not bringing in conversions, not bringing in visitors to your website. So Google takes that into account too. It wants to see people constantly updating their content so that it's not the same content that's been on there for years, that you're refreshing content, that you're giving your website that love that it needs. Because if you think about it, you're creating a website, you're adding content to the website, and then you're just setting it and forgetting it, which isn't really best SEO practices. So you really want to make sure that everything's up to par always with that too.
In regards to this, if I'm a dealer watching this right now and I'm like, I'm paying this SEO company that I'm working with a lot of money to, take care of all of this for me, write content. Am I getting conversions on these pages? Where would a dealer or a marketing director or a CMO who's watching this look into their GA4 to find this?
So there's a couple things. You can obviously look at the sessions and users coming to your pages. If you do have proper ASC events set up and you do have form completions on some of those pages, if you're seeing people come in organically, the form completions too. Same thing with like your chat and text as well, and click to call buttons too on your website.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Let's segue into ASC events and making sure that everything is tagged properly. So you may have seen recently our marketing message at the agency is very much double your leads with PCG. I do want to remind everybody that we are not lead providers here at PCG, but we have great strategies and tactics that will help double your leads. And some of them are just about cleanup, right? And making sure, Sarah, go for it. How can a dealer really double their leads by making sure that they're tagged properly and firing ASC events?
Yeah. So for those watching that are not familiar with ASC, the Automotive Standards Council was a council created by Brian Pash, who mentors our agency, PCG Digital, because we as an agency and Brian recognized years and years ago that there was no common language that we were speaking when we were talking about conversions with paid advertising with SEO. So Brian said, let's all come together, the biggest and best vendors in the agency, and let's create one standard practice for event creation in analytics, what you're pulling into your Google Ads, how you're measuring conversions, and let's just all speak the same language so we can move our industry forward.
That's right. And we have some dealers in that council too.
Yes, we have some really great dealers, just a few stores, big store groups, and we're really moving the industry forward with that council. It's been absolutely incredible. So with the adaptation of the ASC council, we at PCG obviously follow that as our standard for conversion and event setup and practice, and, you know, looking through that with Google Ads.
That's right.
So when we say double your leads with PCG Digital, the very first thing we go into is we look in your analytics and we see what kind of events do you have set up? And then we go into Google Ads and say, okay, with those events, what are you actually considering a conversion? Because 9 out of 10 times we will look in dealers' Google Ads and we'll see page views as conversions, different digital retailing engagements as primary conversions. And none of those are what you consider a conversion. When we think of a conversion, we think of a phone call, a text, a chat, a form fill. 9 out of 10 dealers do not have that set up properly, and that's a shame to the automotive space, right? So when you sign on for a digital analysis with PCG, that's one of the first things we look at. And if you sign on to service with us, Google Ads, SEO, Meta, that's one of the first things we do clean up.
Awesome. Let's talk about one of my favorite topics, inflated results. So you mentioned, you know, obviously looking at specific conversions that are technically not considered conversions. Let's break down the thought process of primary versus secondary conversion and how incorporating secondary conversions into primary can lead to inflated results.
And now everyone's like, what does that mean? So just to backtrack a little bit, when Brian created, and you know, the whole industry, everybody on the council created the standard for ASC, we really made sure to create events that were broken out in between sales and service.
Right.
Because what you're able to do in the back end of Google Ads is optimize specific campaigns for specific events.
Right.
We weren't doing that before ASC. So when we were talking about just a form fill event or a phone call, you know, we would be optimizing sales and dynamic advertising in Google Ads for calls, and all those calls were for the service center because people were just Googling their name and they were coming up with these ads and they were calling them to get their car service, check on their phone. It had nothing to do with sales, but we were optimizing those events for their sales campaigns.
Right.
Now what we do as best practice at PCG is we have primary conversions and secondary conversions. Your primary conversions are going to be what you would assume conversions are when you think about a conversion. Form fills for sales, form fills for service, calls for sales, calls for service, you know, text, chat, things that are tangible that you can see in the CRM. Okay, I got information from somebody, from my website, from my Google advertising. But we took it a step further and thought we need to also showcase secondary conversions, which are things like digital retail interactions, because those people may not be ready to give you their information, but they're building trust with you enough to find your website online and interact with it. And that's just as important to us. So showcasing primary conversions versus secondary conversions on our Google Ads reports has just been so successful for our dealers to really showcase to them, hey, this is what we're seeing the first 30 days or in this 30-day increment as results for primary conversions, but we're seeing 500 secondary conversions, being 500 digital retail interactions, those will eventually trickle down into primary conversions in a few months when those shoppers are ready to buy.
Right. Awesome. Thinking of the ASC Council and the differentiation between primary, secondary, how does SEO tie into all of this then?
So it's kind of similar to what Sarah said with the primary and secondary. More so with the secondary, you're kind of targeting, like she said, somebody that's kind of looking more so not ready to buy a car yet. That would come into play with like your more informal, informational keywords.
Got it.
So that would be somebody that's just researching the dealership, seeing what they're about, checking out their blog, what their blogs are about. Then more so when they kind of get down lower in the funnel, they're looking to actually buy a car. You're more so looking like the trim comparisons because they're between like a Honda CR-V EX and a Honda CR-V LX, either one of those models, and they're unsure what each trim has. So that would kind of make them more so ready to buy and in that type of buyer in the cycle.
Got it. When we're thinking of inflated results, I see all the time when we do our sales analysis, because I approve all of them before they then go to sales. Well, I learn a lot. I see a lot of what's going on out there. When we think of this term inflated results, right? I'm seeing that a lot of the times that the budget will be astronomical alongside the inflated results, meaning what some vendors will say to dealers is, hey, this campaign isn't working properly, give me more money, right? And then you have this, robust number of conversions that aren't necessarily all primary conversions or sales opportunities. If I'm a dealer watching this right now, what would I look out for numbers wise to say that could potentially be inflated? What number of a conversion would that look like?
If you're seeing hundreds or thousands of conversions every month on your reporting, and your vendor is not willing to give you a conversion breakdown, which is something we ask for a lot when we're seeing those kinds of numbers, that's your first red flag to say, okay, they're not optimizing my accounts correctly. Because you have to think about how many phone calls you're getting at the dealership for sales every month. Like, let's take this at a 10,000 foot view. If they're telling you, okay, I got 1,500 conversions this month, but you only got 800 phone calls and half of them were for service and you're not running service campaigns, why are you believing this report?
Right.
Everybody just loves the shiny thing in front of them and they just believe it, but you have to really take it from that 10,000 foot view too. And like I said, if your vendor is not providing a conversion breakdown, that is your number one red flag.
What about a budget? So we see all over the board, right? When it comes to spending money on digital advertising. And I'm talking about like the Google Ads side and the Meta. We see humongous budgets. We see tiny budgets. Where could somebody start that's watching to be like, hey, this is really where my budget should be? What should they look for?
Yeah, so the first couple things that we look at is the amount of inventory you have on your lot, which is going to fluctuate every month. Your market, where you're at in the country, how many potential car buyers are in that market, and what your goals are on each platform. Because we have dealers whose goals are I just want to run dynamic advertising. I'm not brought into branding. I'm not brought into these other campaign types. And we have other dealers where we're like, let's do the full shanty. Like, I understand the idea of influence from other campaigns. I understand dynamic. I want to run VLAs. I want to run everything. I want it to be as robust as possible because I have all this competition. We take all of that into consideration and then we create a baseline budget, a beginning budget. Something that I'm really proud of at PCG is we don't take a percentage of ad spend.
That's right.
So when we are recommending ad spend, it is for the benefit of you and your account success. And that is it.
Right.
And that means that that's going to change every month. And that's okay because your inventory is going to go down, your inventory is going to go up. Your goals are going to change, your market's going to change. So we create a baseline budget and then in 60 to 90 days, we reevaluate. We look at your inventory again. We look at what your competition is running again. We talk to you about your goals again, and we make those recommendations every 90 days.
Awesome. Thank you. As far as budget goes, obviously on your side, there's not an ad spend that goes into SEO, but there is a management fee obviously associated with most SEO vendors. How can somebody at home watching today really say to themselves, hey, this SEO company is doing right by me? What would they look at?
They really should right off the bat just be auditing their website. So when they start with an SEO vendor, they should go through. At PCG, we do a keyword map. We'll go through each single page of your website. We look and see what pages need content, what pages need meta titles, meta descriptions, if there's content there, if it needs to be optimized, all of that good stuff. Then after that's completed and the content's built out, you want to make sure too you're getting quality content. You want to make sure you're not getting filler content and that people aren't promising you the world when you know that SEO takes time. Nobody can guarantee that SEO is going to happen overnight. I always say rule of thumb, at least 6 months before you see results. You have to say at least 6 months. Some dealers 6 months, some dealers it takes a year, some dealers it takes a year and a half. It depends what they were doing on their website prior to.
Got it. We recently had somebody reach out to us to do a demo of PCG. And this gentleman who works at a dealership said that he found us through ChatGPT.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. How can a dealership optimize themselves to be found through ChatGPT?
Yeah, so ChatGPT is like kind of like a search engine like Google, because if you think about it, everybody's putting different things in there. People do outlandish things in there too. But when it comes to ChatGPT, if your website's fully optimized and they're searching for, let's say, a Honda dealer in Eatontown, New Jersey, that's where you're located, that's on your website, and they're searching in ChatGPT, then you should be coming up for it. It's pretty as simple as that. If you're doing SEO, then you'll be found on ChatGPT.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So in my mind, if I was this dealership and this gentleman who said, wow, I found them. Oh, wow, these guys must know what they're doing in SEO. If their company came up when I asked, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we might not even need to do the demo. That's it.
You did the demo for us. Thank you, sir.
That's it. Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. What about voice search?
So voice search it's kind of similar to like long-tailed keywords. You really want to make sure, because obviously with the voice search, people are going to be asking questions. It's not going to be like Honda dealer near me. They're going to be asking like, where is the closest Honda dealer near me? Or different things like, where can I service my Honda in Eatontown, New Jersey? Stuff like that. So when it comes to that, you want to make sure obviously the answer to the question is in the beginning of your content. So this comes to like a lot of blog content too,
Right.
Q&A content. I know there's some people out there that write paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs for blogs, and they don't answer the question within the first paragraph.
Right.
So if you're not answering the question in the first paragraph, Google's going to be like, well, is this really about what the person is asking, the question they're asking, or is this about something completely different?
Right.
So you really want to get to the point. Obviously, you could put the rest of the content, any other details you have pertaining to that topic after it, but you want your answer to your question within the first couple sentences of the content.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm keeping you in the hot seat just for another second. I apologize. We heard a lot of talk at DMSC about AI.
Yep.
You
Million dollar
You
question.
knew it was coming. Michele, your thoughts and PCG Digital's thoughts.
So AI, it's not going to replace SEO. I could 100% tell you that, because you need somebody physically to be optimizing your website, adding things to your website. AI is a great tool to use in sync with your SEO. It's a great place to do some keyword research, some content research, stuff like that. I think it is a great tool. I don't think it's the devil. I don't think anything of that sort.
Right.
But I think as long as you're following like best SEO practices, it'll kind of fall into line with everything of that sort.
Awesome. Let's talk about having a driver in the seat. So we obviously have been through the ebbs and flows. I've been at the company 10 years. You're 12.
Going on 13.
years.
Yep.
You're
Going to be 7.
7 years. We've seen a lot through these years, right? And one of the things that always came into play throughout the years was automation. Dashboards, automation, click of a button, we could make this run for you. I kind of put PMAX almost into that kind of automation as well too.
Yeah.
Right? So Michele just brought up a great point about things still needing a driver. Thoughts from the Google ad side was still needing a body to run these campaigns.
Yeah, so Google is definitely, and they're there already, right? We all know that with Performance Max, like you just said, where they want you to trust their algorithm, and they are slowly taking more and more things away from advertisers to have less and less control. So especially with Automotive, because Automotive is notoriously years and years behind everybody else, you need to have a specialist in these accounts, or else you're going to let Google go haywire, and you're going to be on the most craziest websites, but you'll be getting clicks and you'll be getting, page views, but from people who aren't looking to buy a car.
Right.
So you have to be even more strategic and even more aware of what you're running in these accounts and be really inside the campaign creation. So even, at PCG, I always tell my team, unless there's a really specific strategy as to why you're running a Performance Max campaign, I don't really want to see them.
Right.
You know, like we really just kind of isolate a vehicle listing ad API and the inventory feed, and that's how we run our VLAs. But we don't run Performance Max just to rev up conversions.
Right.
And that goes back to our point earlier where, yeah, you're going to get a ton of conversions if your conversions are page views. And then why wouldn't you want to run $20,000 worth of PMAX campaigns when your vendor's coming back to you and saying, well, you got 5,000 conversions this month, but you didn't.
Right.
So those are all things to remember.
Awesome. When we think about somebody in the driver's seat, right, one of the things that I really want to, know is when somebody signs on for full digital at our agency, you're getting a team of 5 at the company. And I think that we've been really good and skilled at structuring these teams and keeping everybody in their specialty, and then all of them working together to act as an extension of the dealership, right? So we're very comfortable working with dealerships that might just have one point of contact, because then there's 5 of us that are working on as their team.
Right.
So when we think of drivers in the seat, what is one of the things that you're seeing even from the Meta side now as to why there still needs to be a driver running the campaigns, doing the branding, and not everything can be dynamic?
Because Meta is steps behind Google in terms of taking all of the things away from advertisers and saying, let us just run it for you.
Right.
There's been so many updates in the back end of Meta where things are just taken away. Things are moved around, things are taken away. You're just not able to run them like you used to be without really knowing the inside and outside of how to run a Meta ads account. And the amount of audits and analysis that we do for Meta advertising when we get access to a Meta ads account, it's a mess. And we will talk to dealers. We're saying, I'm running social ads. Like, no, I'm running them. They're good. And we get in the account and they're not set up correctly. They're targeting the entire country. They're not running towards the right website. It's crazy what we find in there. So all these companies are like, yes, we're automating. We're using the best AI. We're doing this. We're doing that. It's not working because 9 out of 10 accounts that I look at are incorrectly set up.
Right. So we've been on this journey writing about life cycle marketing.
Right.
And there's a lot of phases to life cycle marketing. At DMSC, Michael Stewart, client account manager at PCG, and myself introduced a new phase of the life cycle, which was reactivation. So Michael Stewart and I have been working hand in hand on one of his accounts, working with Full Path for reactivation of customers. We started with the service side, right? How many people, went to the service scheduler, abandoned it? How were we able to then send them ads to reactivate them? What did the results look like there? That's what we've been working on. When we think of this term of reactivation from the paid advertising side, what could be some great campaigns and tools to reactivate customers?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different campaigns and tools to reactivate customers on Google and Meta, but also remembering how many digital touch points it takes somebody before they're ready to convert with you, and remembering that number in the back of your head. Because a few years ago, we were introduced dynamic advertising on both of these platforms, and that became the shiniest object in the world for dealers, and they just decided to forget about every other campaign type that Google and Meta offers.
Right.
And they're just obsessed with dynamic advertising. Well, that's one touch point. There's hundreds of touch points that somebody will take with you before they decide to convert with you, not even before they decide to buy from you. So really remembering every stage of the life cycle marketing journey that we have been preaching for 2 years now. It's been a long time.
It's been a while, yeah.
And just remembering that the car buying journey is much more complex, and to really understand that you need to be running almost every kind of campaign that Meta offers, that Google offers, from branding to dynamic search to responsive search ads to dynamic on Meta to messenger campaigns on Meta. Everything has an influence on everything else. And whatever you decide not to run, your competition will be running, and that touch point will be lost by you and gained by them.
Awesome. From the SEO side, when we're thinking of reactivating customers back to the website, whether it's from the service or the sales side, right? Because we think about these CRMs, they're very robust. There's a lot of customers in there. And obviously, a BDC department will be working the ones that are the most active. How can content come into play to reactivate some of these customers that have become dormant?
I think it's just kind of about pertaining to the customer, like especially the content. Like if they bought a car already at the dealership, what are they going to need? Obviously service. They might need parts. So kind of appealing to that customer what they specifically need by creating content around that, as well as creating like new content based upon like, hey, you might have been interested in this car. let's bring it back. Like, show them that we're still here. Like, we're a strong dealership. This is what we do. Like, being consistent with it across the board, I think will bring a customer back to the website.
Awesome. When we think of reactivation, one of the driving factors was the CDP. The customer data platform has been the most exciting thing for me the past 3 years, right? Because we used to do so much of that manually at the dealership. When we thought of the concept of the automotive social media sales funnel, which I wrote the white paper years ago, it was manually creating audiences based off of people's activity on the website. But now with the CDP, we're cutting out a lot of that and enhancing it 10 times more. When a dealer signs on with us that has a CDP that is agnostic, meaning that we can work with it, what does that look like from the Meta and Google Ads side?
Yeah, so we're able to create hyper-segmented audiences in the back end of these customer data platforms that almost always will automatically pull into the native platforms of Google and Meta, so we can create hyper-personalized targeted messages campaigns. So we're not just kind of running these broad audiences anymore. We're looking in the back end of your CDP and we're saying, okay, this many people went to this specific website, so we're going to or this specific page on your website. So we're going to retarget them with very specific messages for oil changes, because we see 500 people have revisited your oil change specials, page 4 times this month. So really creating hyper-personalized messages using audience segmentation through CDPs, as long as they can just import themselves into the back end of these platforms, which almost all of them can, it's been a game changer for us.
Awesome. We are very technical. We can do the ins and outs of ASC and tagging and, how this all works and, talking to dealers and recommending budgets based off of data. But there's something still that needs to be very prominent in the marketing strategy, and that's branding.
Right.
Right. Let's talk about branding for a little bit. We cannot forget about branding. We all are millennials, right, who are very, raised into Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that. From an SEO standpoint, what are some great ways that a dealership can brand themselves through video, through content?
Yeah, so obviously the dealership, first of all, is going to rank for their name, their backyard, stuff like that, just because the dealership name is in the URL. If you're not ranking for your own name at that point, there's a big problem there. Right. But from video is one of the areas that I talk to multiple dealerships on a weekly basis about, that they should be doing video. It's so easy to do. It literally anybody with an iPhone could do it. So It's one of those things where they should be doing, like, why buy videos? If a car comes off, a brand new Ford Explorer comes off the truck, have your sales guy go out there, take a video of it coming off the truck, send it to your SEO vendor. They could optimize it so that it's across multiple, it's not just across Google, but it's across YouTube, so that YouTube is just as a big search engine as Google.
Right.
So on top of that, though, if we're creating a new model page or trim comparison page based off of that, we take the video of the car and we could put it on the website too. So you want to make sure that you're creating not just content that could be used on the website, but content for YouTube as well, because YouTube is just as important as Google for SEO.
Definitely. And I saw an article the other day that basically where we're at, content creators, YouTube stars, TikTok stars, annual income is surpassing celebrities.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's so nuts.
And they're utilizing their phone, like you said. And we've preached about this years ago, where it was like when we first started getting into this, where we were talking about, how the dealership can brand themselves. We were like, well, you have an iPhone. Yeah. And I'll never forget, we did a workshop that basically, Brian Pash and I did this workshop together in 2016 that basically was how to hold an iPhone to create video content. The difference between horizontal and vertical. We did that together in 2016. So we've been talking about this a long time, and now it's so crazy to see how far content creators are coming in this space. Sarah, same question for you. Let's talk about the Google side first, for Google advertising.
Sure.
What does that branding look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think branding on Google really depends on your branding everywhere else. So for SEO, for social, when we think about the car buying process, your best bet is to be on social before somebody knows that they want to buy a car. So then when they're ready to buy a car, they already trust you, and then they're going to Google and they're seeing all of your display branding. They're seeing your vehicle listing ads. They're seeing your YouTube pre-roll. That's something that people don't realize is Google advertising, YouTube pre-roll, and that is a huge branding opportunity for you on that platform. But really being present on social first, so then when they are ready to buy, they're already on Google. they didn't even realize that you were building a community of trust with them on social, and now they're already halfway along, your life cycle marketing loop.
That's right. How about from the meta side? What would that branding look like? A little different, right?
A little different. Video content creation, again, is going to be huge, just like Michele said, for SEO. But it's about building trust on social media, especially with car buyers. People still don't trust car buyers. People still don't want to go into a dealership and buy a car by themselves. You want to bring your dad, your mom, your husband, your brother, your sister. They're like, I'm not going in there by myself. But by just building an opportunity, having the opportunity to build trust for your dealership on social is going to be huge. And that happens from content creation, from your iPhone, from utilizing your sales team, from shooting a video about where you're going to get your car serviced. Can I plug in my phone? Is there Wi-Fi? Can I work? Can I bring my kids? Is it kid friendly? Or when I go and I want to test drive, what does that process look like? Who's going to greet me at the door? These are all things that other industries and other small businesses prime their consumers with. Those are also your consumers.
That's right.
So you have to remember how they're being interacted with online in other communities and interact with them in the same capacity.
Awesome. Great. Michele, you recently produced a new white paper. Why don't you tell us the title and why somebody should download it?
Yeah, so it's called The Modern Age of SEO, Adapting and Excelling. So it kind of brings you back to the basics of SEO, like the core principles, what you shouldn't be forgetting about, but also it brings you more so into the realm of like 2025 and what we should be doing in 2025. Obviously, video is a huge aspect that I speak about in that, as well as content. You want to make sure, like we previously said, if content's sitting on the website, it's not producing conversions, it's not bringing visitors to the website. What can I do to this content to change it, to bring visitors to the website, to get somebody to convert on my page? So it talks about all that stuff, as well as some other opportunities that people miss out on, like using third-party vendors. We use SEMrush at PCG for keyword research, as well as competitor analysis and what the importance is of that, as well as like business listings. That's a big opportunity that a lot of businesses out there, especially car dealerships, miss out on for SEO, because their information will be across multiple business listing directories, and it'll be wrong. It'll have the wrong phone number. It'll have the wrong address, and some people will be like, well, what does that matter? Because there is still some people that use those business listing directories out there to get to your dealership, so you want to make sure that your information is important across that. So it kind of encompasses all of your basic core principles of SEO, as well as what you should be doing in 2025 for SEO.
Awesome. Great. Sarah, you and I produced the Automotive Lifecycle Marketing White Paper. Why should somebody download that white paper?
Because that is the way that we are heading digitally. The idea of a funnel is not as accurate anymore because of everything we just talked about. The process of buying a car is so much more complex. The life cycle of a car buyer is so much longer than maybe it was. I always like to give this example that, we look at our marketing results from a 30-day increment always. And somebody's not going to be introduced to your dealership on the 1st of September somewhere online and then decide on the 30th of September, I'm going to go buy that car. And that's how we're measuring our marketing.
Right.
Lifecycle marketing combats that by saying, hey, we're going to be with you every stage of the process, of the car buying process, whether you're in the awareness phase or you're in the loyalty phase and you're, coming to a community event with us. And we're never going to stop, because the car buying process and the car maintenance process never stops either. So if you want to stay ahead digitally, that's the resource to download.
Awesome. And to find these resources, you're just going to go to pcgdigital.com, and right at the top, you're going to click down the resources and you'll be taken right to them. We also have a new resource that's going to be coming out from Kyla. When is that set to debut?
This week. This week.
So Kyla's an SEO specialist at PCG, and she is writing a new white paper that will be there soon, but more to come on that. I could do this all day.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's why I, really enjoy what I do. I love to see you guys shine in your specialties. You've created such wonderful teams at the agency. I just love when we can all work together. And I can't wait to do this again. For those of you who watched our full episode, thank you so much. And we will be bringing you more this summer. We'll see you soon.